This is the Other 22 Hours podcast.
Hey, and welcome to today's episode of the Other 22 Hours podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Shafer-Haiss.
And I'm your host, Michaela Anne, and we are in the second year of the Other 22 Hours. So thankful to still be here, and thank you for being here with us.
Even a small show like ours takes a lot to produce. So before we get into the episode, we just have a quick ask for you guys. The first and easiest one is to just click follow or subscribe on your listening platform of choice. It's a great way to tell the algorithm that our show is worth 45 minutes of your time. And the second ask is to just take your favorite episode, if it's this one or maybe one from last year, and share it with somebody that doesn't know about our show. And lastly, if you want to get more out of what we talk about on this show, get deeper into your creativity, get more into the community, and get a whole bunch of other goodies, we have a Patreon. We're offering one tier for everything that we offer now, everything that we offer in the future, and you can learn more about it at the link below in the show notes.
Part of this podcast is talking about the realities of being an artist, building your career around your art. Developing a podcast is quite similar. So patronage via Patreon really goes a long way in the financial support as well as the building of the community of this podcast. So we really appreciate you. And one of the things we highlight about this podcast is that we are not music journalists. So we look at these as conversations rather than pure interviews. We are talking to other artists in a way that we try to make feel like we're sitting around the dinner table just sharing the honest realities of what this life is, building a career on your art.
Yeah, and as we all know, one of those realities is that most of this business is outside of our control. And so we like to take this show and focus on what is within our control. And that kind of boils down to our mindsets, our headspace, our routines, and our creativity. So we've condensed that into a mission statement and asking people the question, what do you do to create sustainability in your life so that you can sustain your creativity? And today we had the pleasure of asking that question of Rissi Palmer.
Rissi is based in North Carolina, but she was in Nashville for a long time. She is a country singer and songwriter. She debuted in 2007 with her song Country Girl and was one of the first African-American women to chart on country Billboard charts since 1987.
Yeah. On top of that, she has toured with Taylor Swift and the Eagles and Chris Young. She's played at the White House. She's played at Lincoln Center. She's played on the Grand Ole Opry. Been on just about every TV show, written about in just about every publication. But she's such a larger presence in our community beyond just being an artist. She hosts Color Me Country on Apple Music. She also established an artist grant fund called Color Me Country Artist Grant, where she supports underrepresented voices of the BIPOC artists in country music. We touch on that for a brief second with Rissi in this interview, but if you're interested in learning more about all of her incredible endeavors, there are links for those in the show notes below.
But this was a really rich conversation talking about the highs and lows that happen in a career, the personal realities of pursuing a career in country music as a woman of color, grappling with becoming an activist and supporting others while caring for oneself, being a mother, and really beautiful wisdom that has come out of some deep hardship. And as she says, the ego death, some of that wisdom coming only from scraping the bottom and really shifting to a place of empowerment and choices in how you move through this career, not waiting for the industry and building your own ecosystem.
And what I loved is she just talked about choosing that work every day. One of my favorite things is like, there's no finish line. Just keep doing the work, keep showing up. And with that, here's our conversation with Rissi Palmer.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're in between child school pickups, right?
Yes. There you might see a child pass by in this place. It's my 4-year-old. She's attached.
That is totally fine. We
Yeah.
were just discussing, I was sharing that our child wouldn't put her shoes on for drop off this morning.
Nice.
And I carried her to school. So then we were discussing boundaries. And he was saying, that's why she thinks she can do anything with you. Like,
I'm more like, that's cool. We're putting your shoes on. And
Right.
and I'm like, I don't want to fight. So let's just go.
I almost got kicked out of a Broadway play the other day because of my 4-year-old. So yeah.
Strong-willed.
The struggle is real. She was like, I took my daughter and my oldest and my youngest to see Hadestown with my mom
Cool.
in New York. And I explained, I'm like, look, this is a play. we can't leave. You have to use indoor voice. So we get in there and it's good. And like, I'm like, oh my God, we're like 20 minutes in and everything's great. I love this so much. And all of a sudden she looks at me and she goes, like in her loudest voice possible, is it time to go yet?
Oh God.
And so I take her phone out because she has like my old phones get handed down. So she has like the oldest phone. And I was like, here, okay, look, I'm going to turn the light down so they don't see us. Play your games and shut up. She does. And then the usher, of course, sees it and is like, so, yeah. It was prayer.
Did you make it through?
We made it through the whole thing. Thank God. It was fun. Like, it was a good show. So she started watching. But yeah, I say all that to say, I understand.
Yes. Yeah. I definitely used to judge parents when I would see a kid at a restaurant watching a TV show on their phone. And now I'm like, the only way we're going to enjoy this dinner is if you watch a TV show on the phone.
The only way some of us are going to make it out alive is with this phone. So, yeah.
I just wanted to kind of start with where are you right now? What's going on for you in life and career in this moment?
In Durham, North Carolina. I am in the midst of a Beyonce tsunami. So lots of press and like that sort of thing, because thankfully a lot of people want to talk about the history of artists of color in country music at this time. So I'm doing a lot of talking about other artists right now, artists of the past, people that have inspired me and people that have laid a lot of the groundwork for artists like myself. So yeah, I'm in the middle of that and working on a show for Color Me Country that airs this weekend, a special. I'm working on my own record in the midst of all the crazy too. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, a lot of balance.
Yes. In addition to raising two of the most opinionated little girls on the planet.
Amazing.
And you've had your radio show for a few years now, right? Is it 2020 that you started? Is that correct?
Yeah, we're currently in the middle of our third season. It's been on since August of 2020.
Incredible. How has that been in a balance creatively? You know, obviously we don't have a radio show, but we have a weekly show, and we know how it's impacted us creatively, having this other outlet where we're creating something that's not necessarily like a record. But I just want to know what that experience has been like for you.
You know what? It's really been, balance is an interesting word that you just used, because it's been a lesson in trying to balance. When I started the radio show in 2020, we were in the middle of pandemic. So I wasn't working as a musician so much. I was recording and like doing little things here and there in the house, but for the most part, all of my touring and everything had been canceled. It was a lot easier in the beginning to balance the research. And I mean, y'all know, because you have to do this for your show, like the research and, you know, the invitations to the show and deciding the direction that the show is going to go and that sort of thing. Because developing Color Me Country has really been like an episode by episode kind of project. I knew what I wanted it to be, but like getting it there has taken pretty much 88 episodes. Where we are right now. And so like in the beginning, it was a lot easier. But then once the world opened up and I started working again as a musician, in addition to being a mom, in addition to having this radio show, it's been a challenge. I'll be honest. Some days are easier than others.
We can relate, of course. And when I think about the word balance, I think of like standing on a balance beam, like on one leg. And like sometimes you're really steady and sometimes you're like flailing your arms, trying to stop yourself from falling on one side. And I feel like that image, more than just walking straight on a tightrope, calm and straight the whole time, is much closer to the reality of what life is. That some days life feels like there's no way you can be balanced. There's weeks like if one of us gets sick, there's no balance. You're screwed. I used to think things could fall out of balance easily before kids, but being parents is a whole other level that you just don't understand until you do it.
Someone said that being a parent is like they're pushing a cart or something that like has like the world and everything and it's on fire. Any analogy that you can think of with parenting, just add fire.
It's so hard, the actual like time scheduling, but then having the mental capacity to do the things that you need to do. It's really tricky. And I shudder at all the different words of advice I tried to give friends of mine who were parents before me. And I've gone back and apologized to all of them. Like, I didn't know what I was talking about. I'm so sorry. And on top of that, in your radio show and Color Me Country Artist Grant Fund and the Seeds Project, which we'll ask more in depth about, but a lot of your focus, or even like right now, the Beyonce stuff happening, that you're talking and elevating a lot of other artists, where that's not most artists' career path. That's one thing I will say I've loved about starting this podcast, is that we think about other artists so much more, and not on a what are they doing, what's everyone doing and what's their music, but on such like a human level. That's really been so nice for me to not think about myself as much in my career.
I have to say, I think some of it is by virtue of becoming parents. When you're so used to so much of your life shifting from being 100% focused on yourself and what you want and your dreams and how you look and what you think and where you're going, what you're wearing and all that kind of thing, to suddenly to just be focused entirely on this other human being, it makes you more human, I think. Not to say that people without children can't be human, but like when you are in such a self-focused job, like occupation as being an artist, it helps bring you back down. And yeah, I love the fact that I spend a lot more time thinking about other people in my life than I do myself. But there's also, again, that word balance, where you have to remember, like, I spend so much time talking about other people and advocating for other people that I have to remember, like, girl, you are a singer.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that, but you are a singer and you need to write songs and you need to put out music. You need to advocate for her too. It's been a big lesson for me in humility and ego death, but also in like self-care too. Like you have to at some point be a promoter of self. And so it's just trying to find the balance and all that.
Can you share some of the nitty gritty of how you found that balance? You know, like more on a day to day, maybe it's
tangibles. Yeah,
tangible things that you've done that help you strike that balance.
So I say this was my year of no. I'm having a really hard Seriously, no, this was my year of no. I decided at the beginning of this year, there were a lot of personal changes in my life in 2023 to my home life and my family life and all that. And so it has forced me, when I have my children, when I'm with my children, that I have to be very much focused on them. And I try not to work when I have my kids, if it's at all possible. So that means a lot of times, like every other week, I have to say, no, I can't do this interview. I can't do this show. I can't go to Europe. And that sucks and that's hard because I'm one of those people too. Like, you know, as a musician, like opportunities don't always come. And so you have to take them. We've trained ourselves to, no, you got to jump. When the thing comes, you have to do it. But it has forced me to have faith that, number one, I believe in God and I believe that there's a path that's already laid out for me. And so it's forced me to like, okay, let's test that theory. If you say no to this thing, you know that you're not going to be able to do the thing that you really want to do. But if you truly believe that this is the path, this is the purpose of your life, the opportunity will come back because what's yours is yours, right? That's what this year has been for me. It's like, you can't do every interview. You can't teach every class. You can't curate every festival. You can't write with everybody that wants to write with you. Like, you need to pick and choose what's best for the situation, what's best for you, what's best for these goals that you set up for yourself, and what's best for your children, like for your family life, and what's best for self-care. That's the other thing too. For the first time in my life, I'm making time for, like, it sounds so silly, but like I got one of those memberships to do a spa where you can do a facial or you can do a massage.
Oh yeah.
And I had to like make it something that I pay for every month so that I have to go do it. Whether or not I go and do it, $79 is being taken out of your account every month. Yeah. So it would behoove you to go lay down on somebody's table and let them rub on your back or get a facial or something. So like I have to force myself to take an hour out of my month to just be Rissi that just wants to have her back rubbed or just wants to have some skin taken off of her face. Yeah. So But that's what I've had to do.
That just reminds me, it's a quote I heard somebody say a couple of weeks ago that's just been like ringing in my head every day. And he was referring to like running like ultra marathons. So running, 100-mile races and all that. But it applies to so much. And he said, sign up first and then make a plan. We'll spend forever planning and figuring out how to do it, but never actually start.
Never actually do it. Yeah, I'll talk about it all the time. I should do this. I should do that. Make the appointment.
And also when it comes to things like, a facial or a massage, we associate those so much with, well, those are luxuries. Those aren't necessities.
Yes, and luxury. Yeah.
But actually, it's really good for my health, not just my mental health, my like physical health. I have chronic neck pain. A massage will like prohibit me from getting knocked out for days on end because my neck is so bad.
From losing my mind. Yes. Like it's, yeah.
I'm curious about those who speak up on issues of the world when it's just innately a part of us, and then also where circumstances force us. And I'm always, with great sensitivity, always curious for people who are people of color, basically anybody who's not a white straight man, who has these things in their life that society has decided are going to be their limitations, that are not personal, but affect you and prohibit things in your life from happening, but then affect another whole group of people. Yeah. So then you become a spokesperson of sorts. And curious about your personal relationship to that. And if there has ever been reluctance, resentment of, damn it, I would just like to write and put out songs. And that's it. And has that evolved?
First of all, no one has ever asked me that.
Oh, wow.
Thank you for asking a question no one has ever asked. Like, that's great. It's not easy. I did not set out to be activist Rissi, advocate Rissi. It really was just like, I don't like when things aren't fair or like when things aren't equal. I know that the adage I say to my children all the time, life is not fair, but I don't like when something is obviously wrong and people won't talk about it. And so like a lot of the advocacy work, speaking out stuff that I have done, it's just stuff that I would do anyway. Like I feel like sometimes Twitter is like a porch and you're just yelling from your porch.
Yeah.
Like, don't do that. Put that down. And I was doing that. Like, I was just like, okay, so y'all know that this has been going on for a long time, right? Okay. I hate to be that person, but like, and then people just started being like, I think Rissi's saying something. Let's all turn around and look. And so I then realized that there were things that I can say now I couldn't say in the beginning of my career because I was afraid that I wouldn't get played on the radio or I wouldn't get asked to do things. And then you get to the point in your career where you're not being played on the radio and you're not being asked to things. And so it's just like, I can say it and it's true. It's not going to affect me one way or the other because I'm over here doing this other thing. And so when I left Nashville in 2009, and got out of my deal in 2010, I have essentially been an independent artist, 100% independent artist that whole time from then to now. Wow. I just got a manager a year ago. I just got an agent a year ago. Everything else that has happened just because of the fact that I'm just stubborn. So I recognize how important it is for people that are just starting out and do have those dreams and do have those hopes of getting to do the things that I've gotten to do. And maybe they're afraid to say it because they want to do those things and they don't want those opportunities taken away from them. So I see it as a responsibility to be able to speak for people who may not necessarily be able to speak for themselves. But at the same time, it's a really heavy burden because it's like, I'm still an artist. I still want to do things. I still want to be invited on tours. I still want to play festivals and, have the opportunity to have my music considered. And I realize that sometimes when I say the unpopular thing, you may not get invited, but I still feel like it's the right thing and it's still necessary to do. But it is heavy. I'm not even going to lie. I've been having a little bit of an existential crisis this week in working on some of the things that I'm working on for the show. I have been reading a lot about other artists from the 60s and 70s. And the stories are just so similar and they're so heavy. I have moments where I'm just like, why am I doing this? Like I could be doing something completely different and enjoying myself and not worrying about any of these things. But it's just like, I do it because there are people that listen to me, whereas some of these other people didn't have anybody listening to me. And so in that way, it's important and somebody has to do it. Why not me? And then there are the things like someone wrote me and I don't think they realized that they were going to trigger something. I'm going to call her out because it was really sweet of her. I did a post about the research that I was doing and just y'all, you don't even realize how deep all this goes. And Tammy Nielsen, who is an artist that I love and I've had on my show, and I just admire her so much. She inboxed me and she said, I hope somebody is advocating for you as hard as you advocate for other people. And I just started sobbing because I was like, no one does. And like, you know what I mean? And like, and I was just feeling really vulnerable in that moment. It's hard. It is. It's hard. And I'd be lying if I said that I'm brave and defiant all the time. Sometimes I don't want to be brave. I don't want to be sassy. I want to be quiet.
Because also, I think about this stuff a lot because of just my personal makeup and my education, what I pursued in school, and social justice and racism and all has been something I've always been emotionally aware of and drawn to since a young child. And I think about my relationships with close friends of mine who are Black women and think about the emotional load that they have to carry for themselves to process and protect themselves. And the layer of that is always there underneath their top layer that they have to present the world to try and defend and advocate and help others. I think about my life as what I can relate it to is as a white woman being in sexist experiences, and when I share them with men, thankfully not this man, but I so vividly can recount experiences where I've shared with other men, like in the music industry, about very sexist experiences I have with men that they work with. And just the kind of nodding, like empathetic nodding, but I'm like, oh, this is making them uncomfortable because they're just like, shit, I don't want to know this stuff. I benefit from this relationship with this person or this system. And sometimes you just look around and you're like, can someone just protect me? Can someone just speak up since it doesn't impact you? And that, I think, is the root of when people try to have a call to action of like, can more artists, can more people get involved and speak up? Those who are loudest are the ones who are impacted the most and therefore need the most. But it's a hard call to convince others. You might not think you're impacted by this, but it would be really beneficial if you could just come on.
Yeah, I think that's why I was so touched and moved by what Maren Morris did in 2021. She got on the CMAs and said all of our names during her acceptance speech. And she took a lot of heat, but it was very kind. Those are the moments that make me feel, okay, you can do another one. You can do another thing, because it was like, you didn't have to do that. And that was really cool. And I appreciate that. And so I want to pay that forward.
Yeah, that is kind of tying what you were just saying about, essentially about community, about somebody else stepping up, advocating the way you do for other people. Tying that back to having shows is something that's been really fulfilling on my end, focusing on the community as a whole rather than on myself and my career. And that has been that has really inspired the art that I make. And I think my attention to it, in a way, it has surprisingly to me been able to feed back to, I guess, me allowing myself to create the art that I want to make, because I know that there's a spot in the community for it. Seeing the whole pie that is there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. I think doing that sort of thing, when you do focus on other people, it shapes your art. It changes your art because it changes the way you see yourself, changes the way you see the world around you, maybe the medium that you work in. For me, it's changed who I work with, what my hiring practices are, and the people that I give opportunity in, the Rissi sphere. It made me more cognizant of it, because I don't think most people think about it, but I was just like, here I am using myself as an example. I think about when I first came to Nashville, the natural Nashville thing to do is to try to hire all the Nashville people, the regular, try to write with all the Nashville people. And, you want to be produced by the Nashville producers and that sort of thing. It's just like having the right people. And some of those people are still in my life. My publicist that I have been working together for 16 years now, which is insane. And then some of the people just were not for me and were there for the moment, right? But now I hire very intentionally. Like I try to write with people like if something good comes of my music, this will deeply impact this person, the trajectory of things for them. This may help them to get noticed by other people, you know, and then they can have a long lasting career. Or the musicians that I use on this project, it would be infinitely helpful to them for people to say, oh, that person's really good. I didn't know they could play this kind of music. I'm going to hire them for this. And so on and so forth, because it really does work like that. Down the line, there was a makeup artist that I used just on a lark because my usual person wasn't around. But she's phenomenal and was like, I have been trying to break into country music for years. And I was able to refer her to someone. And now she's the one that everybody goes to. That means a lot to me. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but what I am saying is that, again, when you start to think about other people and the way that your actions and your choices impact the economy, the people around you, you start to move differently and make different choices. That's how it has impacted me for sure.
Yeah. And I think once you make that switch away from the Nashville session guys, the Nashville producer, you're opening your horizons to be able to create so much more, to be able to step into something that's so much more powerful. Something that I've noticed, we've been in Nashville for 10 years. There is this thing in a lot of the different scenes that I see where, you know, it's almost like the emperor's new clothes in a way. You know, people really hire with their eyes rather than hiring with their ears. They see people on a post or on credits and they're like, they're good because this name
That's
and this
my
name.
person.
Yeah. And it's like, chances are they are very talented, but is it right for you? Maybe not. There are so many people that get overlooked, like you were saying, that aren't given the opportunity, that are just incredible because they weren't on XYZ credits. As somebody that is in your position or in Michaela's position where you're hiring people all the time, when you step past that and you really look past the credits, look past the loud
resume.
Voices, the resume, the loud voices in the room, whatever, there is a lot of fruit on the tree.
I love what you just said. I literally had this conversation with a friend the other day. I'm learning more and more, and I'm trying to tell younger artists or newer artists, if you look at it this way, you'll be able to depersonalize so much of this. There's a movie that I loved when I was younger. It's a Dorothy Dandridge story. It came on HBO. Halle Berry was in it. Anyway, she's playing Dorothy Dandridge, who is the first Black woman to win an Oscar for her portrayal of Carmen. And so, like, whenever you think of that role, you can't think of anyone else. Like, she's synonymous with it, right? They weren't considering her in the very beginning. She wasn't even in the running. They were looking at Lena Horne or like Diane Carroll or any of the women that were like big names at the time. And there's a scene that I love because it encapsulates the music business so well. And it's her agent talking to the casting agent for this movie. Her manager agent has been trying to get her an audition, and they won't make an appointment. They're like, we don't want to see her. We're fine. So finally, the agent corners this guy at this party and he's like, okay, look, I've been trying to get a meeting with you for weeks. What's the problem? Like, she's in movies. She's beautiful. She's playing these cabaret shows and all this stuff. Like, why can't we get an audition? And the guy says to him, on my way to work, I see faces. I see faces in newspapers. I see faces in the trades. I see faces on billboards. I don't see her face. That's the business. It is whatever I just saw, whatever name I just heard. I flipped on the TV and I saw that person, and now suddenly that person is the one.
Yeah.
Whatever I see in 140 characters or less, whatever I saw on TikTok, whatever I saw, that's what's happening. And that's the reality. And that's, unfortunately, the business we're in.
Well, and I think when you move to the place that you were talking about being in, of being really conscious about your hiring practice and who you're including and who you're elevating. We had Gretchen Peters on here and she talked about how the music industry really, she's the best, how the music industry really keeps artists in a position of please can I have?
Yes.
So when you're in that position of please can I have, you're like, whatever agent wants to work with me, okay, because I need it. Whatever publicist, if I can get these so-called best musicians because I see them playing on popular records, then can I have it? Versus, all right, I'm going to make decisions that I feel like align with me and my art and my character, my singular vision, rather than how can I get that's a pretty powerful and empowering shift to make, and difficult. I don't think anything can happen in your career to tell you you're in the position to do that. You have to do that for yourself.
Yeah. I don't know very many people who get there without experiencing the bottom. I think, unfortunately, it's one of those things, it takes an ego death to get you there. And I definitely had one. And so it is a choice, and it's a choice you have to make on a daily basis. I wish I could say that it's a destination in which you stay, but it is not. Because then you're just like, well, why is that happening over there and it's not happening over here? And like that kind of thing. It's one of those things you have to, it's like love is an action verb. So is this particular choosing and not being chosen is an active thing that you have to do on a daily basis and remind yourself of.
Choosing and not being chosen. That's a big one. I feel compelled to share because before this, I had like a coaching kind of therapy session where I did, I don't know if you know what EFT, like tapping is.
Yes, I do.
I've shared on this podcast and I've shared publicly. My booking agent basically stopped talking to me when I shared that I was pregnant. And it's been a difficult thing for me to get over. The narrative that I've struggled with is feeling like I was mistreated. It's something that happened to me that was really unfair. It knocked my self-esteem. It's taken me a long time to feel like I have value in the industry, an appeal, whatever. And I was doing this kind of tapping session to work through like other people's limiting beliefs that I have taken on as my own. And through the session, I came to a place, I was working through an email that he had sent me. That was kind of like the beginning of the end. That was just this pretty terrible email. And it was through the session, I like got to a place where I was like, oh, instead of being like cowering and feeling like a victim, I all of a sudden shifted to feeling like, thank you. Thank you for showing me your character in this moment, because that's not what I want to align with. I don't want that in my sphere and my business. And it really shifted from this is something that happened to me, that this is something that happened for me. And it was...
That's an empowering stance.
Yeah.
To take.
We'll see how long this stays with me past today. But I wrote it down so I can look at it because I was like, this also needs to inform all my future decisions. That when someone else comes along, I don't want to make decisions of moving into relationships, working relationships based on flattery, what they've done, their position of power. It needs to be our characters aligned, our senses of integrity aligned, our belief systems aligned, because I've had some of the so-called best in the business and they weren't good for me. Like you said, getting to the bottom, sometimes the greatest lessons and movements, it might be a slow move into empowerment, a slow climb up from the bottom of the...
Yeah, no, it is. But it's real. I relate so much to that. First of all, I'm very sorry that happened to you.
Thank you.
But, in the same breath, again, I'm actually glad because then you don't have to work with that person anymore.
Yeah.
And like something else is going to come along and align. It's just that weight while you're there that is exhausting and trying. But, very similar thing. When everybody found out that I was leaving my record company, in 2008, I filed bankruptcy. That's how my record deal ended. And at the time, I had a modeling contract with IMG. I had a contract for a development deal for a television show with Travel Channel. All these things going on in the background, and filed this bankruptcy to get out of my deal and get out of all the financial mess that my deal had put me in. All these people were just like, oh, if you get out of your deal, call me and, we'll be ready to work and we'll sign you and we'd be interested in signing you. By the time everything ended, nobody was calling me back. Nobody would answer phone calls. Nobody would return phone calls. All these people that, oh yeah, we'll sign you, we'll do this. I left Nashville feeling like a failure. And it took a really long time to get out of that and to get out of the woe is me. And I've been rejected because I'm a terrible person or something like that. Yeah. It's hard not to personalize a lot of this. I get that real big, what you said.
Being able to separate Rissi the person from Rissi the artist and insert any name in there is such a difficult thing. Your art is such a personal thing. And as we all know, the business is so all-encompassing. It just inherently becomes this swirl that is indistinguishable. And it's incredibly difficult to not take that as a verdict on who you are and your character.
Which is crazy. And I know exactly what you're talking about. I've had those thoughts of if I were better, if I was, a better person, a better musician, maybe I'd be rewarded. But we all know people who seemingly on the outside have been rewarded over and over and over again with so-called success and money and fame and are deeply unhappy or terrible people. I don't really like the word of like good or bad people, but like people who are destructive or unkind or do bad things to people. So this kind of exchange of like reward or punishment for your quality of person, we know logically is not real, but we still think, wouldn't I be rewarded if I was better?
I think so much virtue signaling is programmed into everything that we do. Like I've been reading this book about how weight has even become like a virtue signal. People don't even realize it. It's like, well, you're fat because you do such and such and you're like this. And like if you were a better person, you'd be able to lose the weight and you'd be able to walk and run and you'd eat carrots and things like that. We don't even realize how much of that kind of stuff is coded into everything that we do. Obviously, when you're not having success and you're not succeeding in the thing that you want so desperately to succeed in, it is clearly because something is wrong with you. We look at the music business as this meritocracy, and it is not. The most talented people are the people that work the restaurant across the street and sing for fun or sing at church on Sunday. Like if this really was a business of everyone who's great is going to win, the music business would look very different.
Very different.
If we let go of that and let go of the value of us as musicians and as artists being in like multi-million-dollar success, then it changes your perspective. I tell new artists all the time, you have to decide, do you want to be famous or do you want to be a musician? Because two very different paths, lots of different outcomes. But one person is much happier, and I'll tell you who that is. So it's a whole mindset change that has to happen. We have to change the way we see success and what success is measured in and that sort of thing. And that's hard.
It's very hard especially when you live in a society that's obsessed with fame and money and not talent or work ethic. Those aren't the things that we're really elevating as a societal whole. If you look at like what is wildly successful, what are like the people with the greatest Instagram followers, like influencers are influencing. They're not like the writers and philosophers and artists. They're like peddling a lifestyle with items to sell. I'm not attacking influencers, but
no, influencers are lovely, lovely people.
I'm just meaning it's hard to constantly have to restructure your mindset to a value system that butts up against the mainstream greater culture that we see every day, everywhere around us.
That's one of the hard things about raising children, and I'm sure you guys will agree, is trying to explain to them that none of this is real. Like my 12-year-old, I have to have that conversation on a regular basis. Like, girl, like she's very into Nora Smith. I know her as a little girl that makes everything from scratch. Like I watched her make Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal for her children from scratch. And I was endlessly fascinated by this. Because I was like, this would have been me running to the car, getting in the car, driving to the store, buying a box, coming back and pouring it for them and putting back my sweatpants.
Yep.
But like she pulled out flour and cinnamon and sugar and like made Cinnamon Toast Crunch for her kids from scratch.
Okay.
And so her whole thing is she likes to do things from scratch. And she does it with a full face of makeup and a very cute outfit. And she's stupid thin, but like they eat like horses.
I think I know about this. Yeah. Okay.
And so I was telling my daughter, I was like, this is an awesome thing to want to aspire to be as far as like someone that has chosen a life where they're completely dedicated to making everything from scratch, knowing where their food comes from and all that. That's awesome. That's lovely. My grandmother was that person. I find it kind of endearing. Next sentence. They did 15 takes of this.
Yeah.
She didn't make this in one, and like the lighting was perfect and her makeup was perfect. There weren't children crying in the background or running by or anything. Like someone's watching the kids in another room. There is a big light in her kitchen shining down so that she looks amazing while she's doing this. She probably burned some of these.
Yeah.
So they've had to do like a couple you know what I'm saying? Like, it was like, so just know that nobody's life is that perfect all the time and runs that smoothly all the time.
Absolutely. I'm sitting here and going, and it's her job. She's getting paid to do that.
It's
she doesn't have
job.
to do anything else.
Well, and it distorts our sense of reality. Exactly that. I really enjoy the different mom influencers that I follow, the ones that show like that travel with their kids and that's their thing. But then they're like, hey, here's a reality check. This is what this actually like. There were 500 tantrums. There was this happening, this happening. And I'm like, yeah, so then you don't go on vacation with your kids or try to do something and you're like, why is this so stressful and hard?
For me.
Yeah,
why is it hard
only
for me?
Because it is for everybody. Just they're editing videos. And I remember the first year, probably still, that Georgia was alive, but I put a record out and my manager or someone would be like, hey, can you do a video about this or post about this? And I'd be like, oh my God, do you know what I look like?
Right, on a regular basis. Do you know that I don't put on makeup? Like I'll share right now. This is a makeup day.
Yeah.
So like as soon as I get off the phone with y'all, I'm going to film 3 other things because I actually am dressed, my hair is done, and I have on makeup. I'm just going to take off my glasses.
Yeah.
But like on a regular basis, it's a hot mess around here.
Yeah.
And so you got to catch me on the right day.
And the amount of, I remember back then being like, but not only am like, do you know what I look like right now? But the amount of time and energy it would take to make myself look presentable, where pre-pandemic, pre-child life, I was like, oh yeah, I'm always looking cute. Like, no. But I was like, I can't even, maybe next Wednesday, I could try to plan ahead so that I can have some time while the baby naps and I can like make my hair look better and put on a little bit of makeup. But it was like a mind fuck for me to feel like, why is this so hard to just look presentable, where then I'll open up my phone and all these moms with 5 kids look beautiful.
It's amazing. And it's like, I just managed to make breakfast and dinner today. Applaud me. Yeah. All the children made it to all their practices. I haven't done anything else, but like, this is what happened. Listen, everybody that works with me, my manager and all the content people, they know. Give me a day. Tell me on Thursday, we're going to need you to do blah, 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 blah. I can make sure, possibly, that I will be ready at some point on Thursday in order to give you maybe 60% of what you asked for.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it, I'll have to catch you on another day when I've decided that I'm going to put on makeup.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're going to get sleepy glasses and possibly a head wrap.
Maybe that's the revolution of just starting to put our sleepy
I do it.
face on the internet more often so the rest of us wouldn't feel so like, wait, why do I look bad? Why do I look beat up after a night with a toddler?
No, I have started my unfiltered content.
Yeah.
Like I posted a picture of Nova and I sleeping together because it was just the wildest thing. There's like a foot in my face.
Yep.
And so this really was me at 3:00 in the morning looking like, why is this child sleeping like this with this foot in my face? And everybody thought it was so funny. I got so many DMs. They were just like, that's so funny. And like, I appreciate you posting your real.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, I mean, that's because everybody's crying for that. Everybody's like, yes, that's real. We just send each other memes all day. That is somebody pulling back the curtain. It's like, because it's a relief.
Nice.
You can it allows you to let the pressure gauge off yourself.
Yeah, when like our 2-year-old wouldn't sleep, he was sleeping on the couch because she doesn't sleep straight. So then she comes in the bed with me and we're exhausted. And then like the next morning we're angry because we didn't sleep. And then we're taking it out on each other. And then we see a meme like making fun of the same scenario. And we're like, see, we're not alone.
It's not just us. Not just us.
On the topic of having a lot to do today, this is a great spot to put a bow on the conversation. And
this has been a good conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I've been so excited to get to talk to you. And, I have like lists with most of these conversation lists of questions we didn't get to, but I hope we get to meet in person someday. I've for a long time been watching your work and just a really big fan and think it's really valuable. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I hope you get your facial this month.
I will. I'm playing with a little foot right now. That's what I'm saying.
I love that. And I know we didn't get to talk about like half of the projects that you have in any detail. So I just want to say on the mic that if anybody's interested in that, there'll be links in the show notes to everything that you're involved with. So
thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for your time. This was a great conversation.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.
Hey, real quick before we wrap up today's episode, it takes a lot to produce even a small show like ours. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please consider taking a minute to check out our Patreon. There's a lot happening over there, all with the intent of growing our community and offering you more resources to navigate a career based on your art more sustainably. You can learn more at the link in the show notes below. Thanks for being here with us, and we'll catch you next time on the Other 22 Hours podcast.